Fire Tribe, where you at?
I hope you ready. Rising from the ashes and it's getting heavy. Conspiracies, we got plenty and some are scary. From aliens to Bigfoot, extraordinary. Yeah. Dan Unaki, Dan and the homie Romy. I was bugging out all the crazy things he showed me. Jesus bloodlines to the stars in the skies. Always a good time vibing with the Fire Tribe. Hey, so wake up, get it cracking. Rise out the ashes, I know you got a passion. Kick off the convo with theories, many conspiracies, other dimensions, plenty ancient history. Fire Tribe, where you at? Wake up. We about to get into it. I know you can't get enough. At home, at work, it don't matter. Turn it up. Rising from the ashes. You know what's up. Hey. Rising from the ashes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Rising
from the Ashes. I'm Dan Unaki Dan.
I'm the homie Romy. What is happening, Dan?
What's up, man? So today we're here with Graham Dunlop from Grimerica. Everybody knows Graham.
Whoop, whoop.
We're having him on the show today because he just recently read Myths and Pre-Columbian America by Donald McKenzie. And this month we're getting into Ancient America. And so we thought, since it might be fresh in his mind, that we'd kind of pick his brain about this. Graham has narrated over 60 books. Should I say over 60?
Yeah, you could probably say that. I mean, over 50 for sure.
Yeah.
I kind of lose track, and some of them are compilations of all the other ones we've done. So, you know.
Yeah. So go check out Adult Brain and check out all these fabulous books that he's put audio to. It makes it really easy to check it out, listen, soak up some of the information without having to read it yourself. I actually have eye problems. And so if I read a book for too long, I can't, I just start to get all blurry and, or a certain light. If I'm in a weird light place, I can't read it. I have to read somewhat in the dark. If it's too bright, I can't. I just keep reading over and over again, and nothing gets retained.
Wow.
So
He's an old man.
I really appreciate you having me on and to talk about all this. I mean, I love to listen to books as well. It's harder for me to read than to listen. So I feel pretty grateful and blessed to be able to read, to narrate all these books. And it's kind of become my job now, podcasting and reading books. And it's kind of something I manifested. I was like, I want to learn. I want to keep learning. I just wanted to be able to learn sort of at my own pace, or to help people as well, to be of service to people. And this seems to be working so far.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have been doing this for what, 10 years or more? 12 years podcasting?
About 9 years.
9?
Yeah.
So pretty close. So you guys have been out there for a long time. You guys do 1 to 2 guests a week.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you have several different shows now, 3.
Yeah, we have our regular show, the Grimerica show, which is the long running one. And then we have another one called Grimerica Outlawed, which is a different feed completely. And that's a premium feed. So the first half of that show is free. And then the second half, we ask for subscribers, and trying to sort of make a living that way. And then we have a Rockfin channel that we just did. Romy just did a presentation for us. We're going to put that on our Rockfin channel. That's kind of just a thing we do every once or twice a month, throw video type content on there. But our podcasts are now, we stopped streaming and doing the YouTube thing and all that. We just do audio only now again. So for the other 2 podcasts. And then we have some trips and stuff that we'll probably talk about.
Yeah.
Contacted the cabin. We did one in Arizona, Magic on the Mountain, which was pretty cool. So we have it's almost like an intimate gathering, like a mini conference in a way. I think Romy, you and Darren have been talking about maybe doing that in Hawaii with you. It's sort of cool because you have a guest, maybe 1 or 2 guests that maybe have been on the podcast or that have, research or stuff to teach. And then you get, 20, 30, 40 people, sometimes more, together and into a venue. Seems to be a really fun way to hang out with people.
Yeah, man. I've seen the pictures from you guys going to Scablands and everything, and David Matheson and Randall Carlson and Joe Roop and stuff. We can get into that now before we get into the book a little bit. What places have you guys gone on some of these Contact at the Cabin tours? And
we started out in Colorado at close to. Now I'm gonna have to look that up. I always forget the name.
And what for what reason are you picking these certain locations?
Yeah, so the Colorado one, it was our first one with Randall, and we had 3 separate groups come in, and we stayed in this big place near Pagosa Springs. So it was a good spot with the springs there and everything, but it was close to a bunch of old sites from the Pueblo.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, there's that big tower there. See, I don't have all the sites handy with me. I should have had it all up. But this is all the stuff that was built in the, like, I think around 1,000 years ago, around 1100s.
Okay.
Kind of left. Like, it's still a bit mysterious the way it's constructed, and then sort of, that whole sort of civilization collapsed. Yeah. And Randall kind of related it to the stuff that was happening with the cathedral building, and it was happening in South America, in America, in Europe, this really huge proliferation of technical building, sometimes astronomically aligned, like these ones in the Pueblos, like you could see there was a spot in this mountain. I'm trying to remember the peak. It was one where you had to hike up this mountain, and where the moon rises on a certain day right in between these stones. So they were aligned astronomically or lunarly. And why were they being built around that time? Like, I think Randall sort of suspects that there was a climactic change then too. It was really when they came out of the dark ages and things started to get hotter, and that was able to proliferate around. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons.
I heard an interesting story of, like, in medieval times, how they always talk about everything being misty and like spooky, and kind of swampy, is because at that time the weather was changing so much. That's why they can wear all that armor plus a cape and other warm clothes on their body, because it was freezing ass cold. We look at it and go, why? How can you have all that stuff on? It'd be so hot. I'd be sweating like crazy. But they were able to, because it was actually a very cold climate.
Yeah. There was that huge park down there that has all those hanging rock formations, and they have there's some cave art, and they have the old dwellings underneath the rock in that canyon. I'm trying to remember what it's called here. I should have had this up. You know which one I'm talking about, Romy?
In Scablands?
No, in Colorado, near the where all the Pueblo stuff is. Anyways, I'll if I think of it, I'll mention it. But yeah, really old, interesting stuff. And then the Scablands tours are more about the mega flood, so it's a completely different kind of thing. And that was really interesting to see in person, because you don't think that kind of landscape is around in Washington, but it's pretty incredible. And he really does a good job at explaining sort of how the floods might have come through here and destroyed this part of the North America. And to see it in person is quite astounding,
Yeah, there's Washington is one of those states where it kind of has all these little microclimates people don't realize. I was born and raised in Washington, actually, so I'm a Washingtonian, born and bred, born in Port Angeles, grew up in the southwest part, but you have the temperate rainforest up there, with the oldest rainforest in the world. And it has some of the oldest, like, old growth forest, as well as like the thickest moss, and the mycelial mat network up there. That's why Paul Stamets chooses to be working out of Olympia, Washington. But then the second you cross the Cascades, you go into desert, and it's like scorchingly hot. And that's like right where the Scablands are, is like right in the middle of that of the mountain range, like right over there. And yeah, Washington's cool, man. But I think there's something going on in Seattle with all these corporate characters. I think there's an entrance to Hollow Earth there because it's just heavily magmatically controlled, and we all know how many alien and UFO sightings are around volcanoes, and that it's called the Ring of Fire for a reason, and Washington is right up at this, and BC and everything is all right there in the Puget Sound. That's its own tectonic plate, and so I think there's some sort of either electromagnetic hotspot these guys are able to teleport and transport, but I think Seattle's got some strange occult ties that I've yet to break down. But
that's where the black-eyed children come from too. Yeah,
I don't know this. What is it?
Yeah, the black-eyed children. They have the big black eyes, and they keep bugging you and try to let you. They want you to let them in their house or their car or something, and if you let them in, then then you give them permission to do it. You let the boogeyman in.
It's exactly. It's the whole vampire mythology there and everything. It's so weird. Yeah, we had David Weatherly on the show many, many years ago about the black-eyed kids. We met him at a conference in 2012 or 2011 or something. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff.
Yeah, it's wicked, man. But
I didn't realize how hot Washington was in the center either, because I grew up in Vancouver and I always was on the coast, which is quite different. So I always thought of the whole state to be cold and wet and all that, but I didn't realize, of course, it attaches to the Okanagan, which was its own little place in BC, its own little climate, it feels like you're traveling in a different country when you stay in the Okanagan and the BC and that whole wine valley. So that extends all the way down south. So yeah, it was great weather when we were down there with Randall too. And he was showing us around all that site. So we stay in a place called Soap Lake, which is central to many of these places. So some of them are an hour or two drive away, but we travel to all these different places during the day, and then Randall gives us presentations at night and stuff, and we try and get him to talk about esoteric topics and the moon and stuff. But
I think it was him that I saw talk about this, and it was how the all of northern, there's a big old half moon over the United States area in the north, and it was kind of all ice at one point, and when all of that melted down, that's what went through these different lands up above and kind of all went into the Grand Canyon in Arizona, and that's what kind of washed out a lot of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Has he talked about that all with you, or?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Cause we were in Canada, right in Calgary. We were at the point where the Laurentine ice sheet, I think it's called, and the continental sheet, the two glaciers were together. There was a little strip in Calgary that was between, or in Alberta, I guess now, that was between those, or it just butted up against them there, but they were a mile or two high, right? We were under that much ice, and it melted fairly quick as far as we know. Fairly quick as in maybe hundreds of years or maybe even less. But he talks about how that, and what Randall does is we do these Zoom calls prior to these events, which we did even back from Colorado, and Randall goes over a lot of the topology and a lot of the maps and stuff and where we're going and what to look out for and all that before we even go out. So you kind of get a sort of a personal sort of presentation from Randall before we do those.
That's awesome.
We've started to do that with all our trips, actually, even the smaller ones. We have one coming up in Arizona right now. It's in Utah. The Star Myths with Dave Matheson in Utah. We go to Zion Park and Bryce Canyon, and we'll do a Zoom. We have a Zoom this week for all the people that attend, and Dave will talk about, what we're going to do and kind of just a pre-meeting event, a pre-event meeting type thing. So
that's first of all, it's genius. I think both Adult Brain and the meetups are just naturally attuned to what you would evolve in the podcast realm. It's
exactly.
Okay, now we're creating this. But I'm curious, what's the most kind of strange thing you've seen on an outing? Have you guys as a group seen any strange lights or anything?
Yeah, dude.
Crazy?
There was a UFO sighting at the last time. I couldn't go because of COVID, and I couldn't get across the border. Darren's Indian, and he could do whatever he wants these days. So they saw Dave Matheson himself and a couple other people. They saw this UFO from a different angle. Two people were down there going, "What is that?" And it was this shining thing turning in the sky. And Dave saw it too that time. When we were in Colorado, I was doing CSETI sort of CE5 things with people, and I'd go up I kind of fucked up a couple times. The place I had set apart, I couldn't find it in the dark, and we end up sort of just like sitting out by the stars and looking for stuff. We saw a few like shooting stars and some flash bulbs, little bits and pieces, but there was 2 sightings, 2 UFO sightings, and what the guys think it is now was Elon Musk's Starlink satellites. But at the time when we looked at that being launched, the timing seemed to be off. But there was 2 sightings of that when we were there, which was really strange. Yeah.
Fascinating.
That's awesome.
And before I forget,
I love that.
Before I forget, that was Chimney Rock was the one I was talking about with the moon between the rocks, and Mesa Verde. Oh. Mesa Verde was the other park with the dwellings underneath the overhang. So we went and toured around all that. There was a couple other places that we went to in Colorado at that point. That was our first one with Randall. And then we started doing the Scabland ones. And now we have one in Montana as well. It's going to look at the mega floods from the Montana perspective.
Yeah. I think one of the things, that we really don't take into consideration when we talk about history is like I was saying with the medieval times, is the weather. Like, what was the weather like? Like, it sounds like an old person thing to say, but like, that can have like a very dramatic effect on things. I remember a story of some battle where they saw a meteor in the sky, and they took a break for a year while that meteor was in the sky, and then commenced battle again after it was gone, because they thought it was like an omen from God not to fight anymore. So, I mean, these types of things play a huge part in just like overall how things go. So, when you talk about like cataclysms or catastrophic things happening in America, it really ushers in new ages and new ways of thinking. And it seems like it has played such a big part in things. And maybe, people talk about these mud floods. This is kind of why I'm going into the American history and the catechisms and stuff like that, is because people often talk about these mud floods in the 1850s. But I'm kind of wondering if maybe it was around more of like these Atlantis times when everything got washed out, and maybe there was some of that flood water covered America too. And there was just already people here in America before that. And some of these, interestingly enough, some of these Native American stories that we have here in America even talk about these things already being here, and that they just kind of stayed away from these areas because they were the city places that they didn't go to, and they just kind of hung out in their own little areas. So I think
they don't want to hang out with the Atlantean overlords, right?
Yeah,
like, they were
exactly.
just obsessed with tech.
Well, and even the Native Americans talk about the giants that were here and the battles that they had with them. So obviously there was already some sort of people here, right? I don't know how big a average size Native American is, but they were giants to them. So they had to at least been, I would say 8-9 feet. I mean, if I see somebody that's 8 or 9 feet and I'm 6'2", and I see them, I'm like, dude, that guy's a freaking giant. He's huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing about these. There is some Mexican and North American, South American myths about the flood and the Ark. I mean, I'm reading this book called Ancient Egypt, Light of the World, Volume 2 right now. And the chapter I'm on is about the deluge and the arks. And there's all these different, I didn't realize how many different stories of the Ark there was as well. But I highlighted something here for you guys because I knew you're going to be talking about the American stuff. And he says, we've already cited 1 or 2 of the American and African instances, but in a Muska's myth, Huithlaka was the first old mother who ruled when there was as yet no sun or moon. So it says she is described as a very thick woman who maliciously loved to spoil the work of her husband. It was she who caused the flood, from which but a few persons escaped by seeking refuge on the mountaintops. So there's a whole bunch of these mythologies of mound building to escape the floods as well, which is really interesting. 7 mounds in a lot of these parts, sometimes correlated to the stars. They call them the 7 pole stars. And these things were these mounds and high mountaintops. The Ark myths, a lot of them ended up on mountaintops. Many, just not Ararat, but there was other ones as well. And then they talk about this this solar god put a stop to the deluge and drove her from the earth and changed her in the moon. That's where it kind of gets a little loony. But the result of the flood in this case was the same as in the destruction of mankind. And then they talk about there's a Mexican in Mexican pictures. There's an earlier type of the pole. Again, this pole, like the pole star, as a point of departure than the Tower of Brick. It has been called the starting point of the Aztecs after the deluge.
Does it go on to say how many degrees it is off? Because I've heard recently that there's like a 23 degree tilt of the Earth in the round Earth model, and I heard some type of archaeologist on another podcast, and she was saying how they found some structures, but they seem to be like 23 degrees off of where they think they should be.
Wow, that's
so
interesting.
It's like, so it's like that was built that long ago. That's crazy to me,
Yeah, there was another one that talked about the pole shifting every 3,000 years or 3,700 years, but they kind of rounded it down to 3,000 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then I started thinking, man, is this something that, it's kind of a cycle within the great year, but maybe the poles shift more frequently than we think, like we think of it as like every great year, or every half great year. But what if it's like little, it shifts at 23 degrees every few thousand years? I mean, we're going to be like, maybe that 3,000 years was part of the, the end of the Iron Age or something, maybe when Mount Vesuvius went off. I mean, who knows what would that, like, if that shifted, would that cause a whole bunch of other natural disasters too?
Right. I mean, yeah. That would cause a lot of
not
things.
Vesuvius. I meant Thera, like in that, because that was part of the downfall to Egypt, right? It was the end of when Santorini blew up. That was only like 1,000 BC or 1,300 BC or whatever it was, somewhere around that time.
That was like the loss of the Minoans, right?
Yeah.
That was Vesuvius in the Mediterranean. I think that was like 20-something hundred BC.
Yeah.
Gavin Mendes has a book about Atlantis, and he talks about going into one of those islands, Crete, I believe, and they punch down some lava, and they're able to get into like this cavern that filled up the inside, and they found all these reliefs, pictures on the wall of these giant ships and boats that they were using to navigate with, and that was around 20-something hundred BC. So they obviously had boat technology back then. A lot of people will say, how did they come over here? How did anybody get over to America? How's there people in America before? Well, they had ways, man.
Oh yeah, Thor Heyerdahl proved it by going around in a reed boat. He made himself a reed boat and did it, right?
He did it in a reed boat
over there. Yeah.
Oh,
that's what I heard. There's another one here from that ancient Egypt book before we move on. Mexican tradition that the coyote, a co-type with the jackal and the dog, got wind of the coming deluge. To keep himself from drowning, he gnawed down a large cane that was growing on the bank of the river. Then he entered, then stopped up the end of it with a kind of gum to keep the waters out. So, there's all kinds of this weird North American, South American. I don't know. I guess, would that be Central America? Even just myths of the deluge as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's fascinating because, we think of mostly like the Middle East area of having to go through the deluge. We don't really think about it out here in the Americas. So, yeah,
even though it did happen, like Randall, points out, it did happen mainly over here, really, you could say.
Yeah, you can even because you're Canadian, so you can kind of see like the different channels up there in the north, right? There's like a lot of channels that kind of come through from like the North Pole area. So if you're situated at the North Pole, it's not too hard to just go down into Canada and take one of those river highways right down into America.
Yeah, the other thing I kind of realized too is that we don't really have there's a spot where the ice was, right, which is northern U.S. So it went over the border into the U.S. But below that, there's way more history down there, right? Because it wasn't frozen over for 50,000 years or whatever.
Right, yeah.
So we don't have that history here. It's all just been covered over. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's stuff going back before the the height of the ice age, but I feel like we're kind of in a spot that's very just plain, there's, well, pardon the pun.
Yeah. What are the native people in Canada called? Are they Inuit?
That's the kind of the Eskimos, the ones up north,
okay.
that are still in the.
Because I was thinking about that, and that kind of sounds like Inuit.
Yeah,
Inuits.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Inuits.
So I think
I was just looking up.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just looking up, just trying to find I don't know, any pictures of random old boat shrapnel on top of mountain ranges, because we find I couldn't find any except for this one. They claim that this megalith on top of Ararat is Noah's Ark, but it's up for debate because it's a pretty big rock structure, so it means it would have to be petrified in order for wood to petrify. It needs the exact environmental conditions. Anywho, but I mean, obviously, there's a huge deluge that happened, but the North America is kind of sticky subjects to understand the timeline on it. I mean, we have Randall Carlson is basically the only person that we can go to for that kind of research and talking to of what was happening here at this time, and he says there was ice, so we got to take his word, and that's okay. But I'm wondering what there's all of this misconstrued understanding of the timeline in general. So, just trying to really understand the timeline from, I mean, we know that the Gregorian calendar, every calendar has been construed to that specific time period, area, geographic location, religion, money, power, so on and so forth. And I guess really what I'm getting at is there's definitely a deluge, but I like looking at all of these old megaliths on top of mountains, and you're like, how in the flying fuck did you get up there, bud? Oh, must have been all water around. Must have been really easy to get to.
I've thought of that too, because, we don't believe a lot of this other mainstream stuff, but the mainstream theory is that we were covered in ice. There was an ice age and we were covered in ice. And I've sort of thought, is that real? Do we question that? I mean, that's sort of one of the things I kind of just sort of accepted. Okay. Yeah. There was a mile or two of ice in this spot in North America, and it's part of, and it kind of matches with the hundreds of flood myths that are around, that something did happen. Mind you, this Egypt book I'm reading, the guy doesn't think there was a massive flood. I mean, I don't know if that's because the Christians kind of took over that myth and made it seem kind of more religious than really it needed to be, because there is so many other myths of the floods. But he kind of thinks there was a bunch of little floods, which is similar to a past guest of ours that thought Egypt was the site of Atlantis, and that there was many, many floods, but it wasn't like Atlantis. He thinks that Atlantis might have been built after the Younger Dryas and not destroyed in the Younger Dryas. So I think that I seem to think there was
good.
Yeah, I seem to think there was. I'm still at the opinion that there was one massive cataclysm. There was many other small ones too, but it was really the end of the Younger Dryas that raised the sea levels 400 feet. I'm kind of more with Randall on that, still as an overarching kind of theme, that destroyed a lot of the megalithic sites, or maybe, maybe some. I mean, and maybe some survived that. I mean, I don't know. It's so weird.
In the Sahara, they find whale bones, right? They find giant whales bones in the Sahara Desert. They find other marine type animal fossils there also. So at one point, either a lot of water had to wash over it, or it was some type of water area that contained water in it, like a lake or some. I mean, obviously not a lake, because it had to be salt water for whales to be there.
Right. That's a long ways.
Yeah.
So there's a quote here just from that book, Pre-Columbian America. And it says, speaking of this topic, after the Spaniards had conquered Mexico, the old world theologians found it difficult to account for peopling of America, and much speculation was indulged in as to whether Noah one of his sons or the immediate descendants of his sons had selected that part of the world for settlement of a portion of the human race. So there was difficulties with the religious people too, realizing like, well, how come there's people here? We're only supposed to be so old,
Yeah. Yeah, they don't want to acknowledge that maybe, so that's why they hide it.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of interesting too. There's some people out there who I don't necessarily disagree with, but think that maybe America was the original Egypt location, and then after the flood, it kind of had to pick up and move. And Egypt that we know of is the second location of where Egypt was, and they often refer to like the Mississippi River as being like the Nile, and like there's these different places around those areas too that have the same names as they do from the Middle East. But that could happen backwards and forwards, so they could have been that they came out here and just renamed those places, or it could happen that they were here and went there and named those places after that. So it's kind of a hard thing. So that's kind of why we're going into this and trying to get out some more information that maybe people don't talk about.
Yeah, I'm not there yet with that. That's a bit too much for me to wrap my head around. Maybe one day, but right now it's like even the mud floods is tough sometimes, except you see those, you do see those things that look like they were, covered in mud, or they were even petrified in a way. We went to the petrified forest and that was interesting to see the transmutation of these. I had only seen the one on the West Coast, and this one in Arizona was really interesting. Like, I didn't realize they became crystalline, right? Like literally quartz. Different colors, beautiful colors of crystals. These trees transmuted to crystals, really, right? I mean, unbelievable.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's so cool. Yeah, I was talking earlier about petrified wood. It's think about this is how perfect it has to be, right? Because trees fall all the time, right? But it turns into soil unless it petrifies, and it needs to be the amount of water, like not a lot of water, but perfect amount of sun, perfect amount of minerals in that land right there, and all the environmental everything. And then it also, on top of that, supposedly, it takes 500,000 years for it to crystallize. They say 500,000 to a million years. And it's just, I just love it, man. I love it. I used to have this huge 100-pound slab of petrified wood, and it was like green on top, and it was just so beautiful, man.
Well, Michael Tellinger's work too. He talks about these petrified giants that he finds, and finding petrified hearts and livers and all kinds of different organs and everything, and how he went up this mountain day after day, just doing excavations and whatnot, and he kept tripping over this rock, and he finally uncovered it. And then he realized it was a piece of petrified body. And he started to dig it up and look into it, and realized he collected a whole giant human with liver and heart and head and bones and everything, and they're all petrified. So it's pretty interesting. Wow. A lot of people don't agree with that, but he's the same guy, that talks about all the rings in Southern Africa.
The balls.
No, not the balls. Oh, he talks about the balls, the spheres too.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but he also talks, there's these little circular rings that people think were cow herding things, but he's saying that they had more to do with the resonance in the earth was creating these rings, and they were measuring the resonance and putting the stones in that specific frequency pattern, and that all these different stone rings are different frequency patterns. And that's pretty fascinating. That kind of coincides with some of the things that Roman's working on.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, well, so since we're getting into the book here, I kind of wanted to touch on the special stones and gold and everything, because the first couple chapters is dedicated to crystals and precious stones and obviously gold, because the pre-Columbian people were absolutely entrusted in so much gold. And so I thought that was really cool. The appreciation of stone is strong and ancient, true and tried. And, there's like the long-term beef, because we just did an Atlantis Lemuria month, right? And there was this supposed beef between Atlantis and Lemuria, because Lemuria had access to these red crystals, and that was like how they kept their society at peace. It was like part of their religion and everything. And it's I'm wondering if as society crumbled from those golden age periods, that we've been on this long-term journey to create the philosopher's stone, right? Also, by the way, petrified reminds me of putrefied, which is step one in the alchemical process, putrefaction. Anywho, and then, we have this huge tie with Hermes, and Hermes is red Mercury. Red jasper is the blood of Isis. And there's like this, the cathedrals were originally built pre-Christian. The original cathedrals were pre-Christian, and they were supposed to be homes of the cult of Isis. And so there's like this, the red stone of Isis, Hermes, and then you have the cathedrals, which are built to like kind of try to remake stones. And I'm just like, there's so much fascination with gold and precious stones in ancient Maya. I think it might have stemmed from those civilizations, but I'm trying to find myself wrapping around to a question here.
Well, no, I think what I'd like to say about that is that what I didn't realize is it seems to be a spiritual reason why they want to find these things, right? It's not like for value. It's not gold. It's not to hoard wealth. It's for the spiritual power, for the connection to, I think they really did believe they had different properties and different things in these, and that's why they wanted them. And it makes you wonder why they wanted gold. Like, why was gold so, in an alchemical or electrical way, why was gold so popular? I mean, I know it was malleable and it's very functional for certain things, but I think there's a real spiritual significance to gold and many of these gems.
Yeah, if we get into like Bach Saga a little bit, everything had to do with the sun, and sun came from gold. Even it's just gold. God is gold with an L in it, right? So they talk about the essence of man coming from the sun, and that coming into your sperm, and then your sperm becoming part of the sun. So now you're part of God, and then you're putting that into creation. You're creating more, just like the sun is creating life. You're creating life because your sperm is creating life. And so in the book, when you talk about how they would take these big old things of gold, or throw stuff into the well or to rivers to like fertilize the land so that it could become more fertile, it just made me go, oh, that's like kind of lines up with what they talk about in the Bach Saga too, is this whole fertilization aspect of gold and how it pertains to the sun. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah. I think one of the things about the book that I think he's trying to get across is that, and I mean, I can just quickly, like, some of the chapters, like, it is a pretty interesting book. They've got like Romy mentioned, the glamour of gold, the growth of the new civilization, the Indian elephant in American art, symbols with a history. They talk about the serpent and a bunch of stuff, the winged disc, the Semites, the Celts and the Norsemen, American Asiatic relations, sea routes, water burials, cremation, the milk goddess and the pots, the jewel, water, and mugwort goddess, love and food, the dragons, the white missionaries and the white gods, two great gods and motives for migrations. And I think what his overarching thing is that there's so many commonalities that it can't be from just spontaneous. It can't just be spontaneously created in America. Like, it's connected. And then what I started thinking is this is the same as all the other comparative mythology books. It's all the same as all these other things. It doesn't mean that, like, it's not so limited to America, even though it's about America. It's about how everything is similar around the world, like just like the Hamlet's Mill book or the Secret Doctrine books. or the esoteric structure of the alphabet book or this book. I mean, it's just saying that all these things came from a place, Egypt or beyond Egypt even, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The original homeland, right? I mean, it's fucking nuts because, like they have cosmology alignments just like everywhere else in the world, right? Cosmological, architectural alignments. Then you have the association with gold is the sun, silver is the moon, and it's the same everywhere. It's the same everywhere, you know. It's fucking beautiful. But I'm under this impression that racism was created like relatively recently after like the fall of Western Roman Empire or something. Because like in the book, in the pre-Columbian book that we're referencing here, it even said that, you know, there was, you know, a lot of like melanated people there, but there was also white people. It was a diverse group of people living in the Mayas and the Aztec, which I mean is kind of hard for anybody to wrap their fucking head around, to try to say that there was maybe Asian people and black people and white people and, just fucking brown people of all different shades and everything. I mean, that's amazing. And but what was the change? When was the switch, you know, to be like, no, you stay there and go here, and the real racism and classism and everything was created? That's one of my major questions in life.
Yeah, one of the guests we had on recently, he kind of thinks that the races were able to evolve quicker than I would think, like from antediluvian times to now. Like the Asians became the Asians, and the Africans were the blacks, and the Indians, and that all happened within that period of time. And I don't see that happening as quick. I feel like we've been mixed up for many, many tens of thousands of years and been all over the place. You know, I mean, even like Graham Hancock's book that I think would really give Donald Mackenzie some credence on his things, is that it's proven that the genetics came from Australasia or somewhere into South America, right? Way before they think. So, I mean, I feel like it's been mixed up for a long time. And the battle, I think, traditionally hasn't been about race until recently. It was about religion or territory or, I don't know, whatever else they were doing wars on,
red jasper, red gems and gold
resources, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, but now it's, now we're throwing racism into the mix. It's pretty crazy.
Fuck. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, just maybe talk about Atlantis and the origin story of that, because it kind of, and the colors associated with Atlantis, I think that kind of explains why there's different races here. And also in Ignatius Donnelly, he talks about how there were red, white, and black pyramids, and that those were each for the different races that lived in America. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, because in the book you do talk about those colors.
Yeah, that is interesting. And the way they do call them Red Indians, right? Like that seems to me like Native Americans. And I think what that means is North America, South America, and indigenous. And but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they say about the blacks or black as a color. I mean,
yeah. In the book, though, it talks about where these Native Americans came from, which was the Siberia region, right? And so possibly they actually came from India or an area near there and came over the what's that called?
The Bering Strait?
The Bering Strait and into America. And maybe those were the Clovis people that came down, and that they came actually from India.
I mean, that's a long walk, but I mean,
I think boats, man.
Yeah, they probably came in boats. Yeah, for sure.
They talk about, so I got a quote here from it. It says, "Did their civilizations and their complex religious systems have independent origin in their homelands and developed there entirely isolated from an uninfluenced by those of much greater antiquity in the old world. Is it possible that the early peoples who reached America from Asia carried no vestige of religious belief with them? That each migration, early and late, involved entire loss of memory, so that immemorial modes of thought and immemorial customs and beliefs were completely forgotten, and that after reaching the new land, they set themselves to invent anew what their ancestors had invented before them, and to formulate religions, ideas that had been long prevalent in the old world whence they came? That's a question, but I think that's sort of a rhetorical question, saying that, no, that's not unlikely. But they do mention here, I had some stuff. You guys did some stuff on your podcast about birds recently. They talk about the secretary bird of Africa and was transferred to the pre-Columbian mythology to the American eagle. I thought,
cool.
Yeah, I thought Roman would like that. I'm trying to find the spot where they kind of go way back, I think, which is a problem to me, and to the tertiary period, like millions of years. So it's almost like, now I don't know how much they were thinking that when he wrote this book, or how much of a unusual thesis that was, but I think we've kind of stepped back. I think we've gone back too far. The pendulum swung too far back to saying that it was only, 50,000 years or 60,000 years or whatever. And now it's back. Now we're sort of heading back towards it being longer than we thought. But that seems to be really far for me. Like tertiary, going back millions of years, seems pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we're that's so speculative at that point, right? I mean, like, holy shit, I was just looking up though, because I know the main kind of structures that are built in ancient India and ancient Asia, and I was like, I wonder how similar they look to South American temples and pyramids. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys, they look very strikingly similar, right? They're different than Egyptian pyramids. They're completely different than that style, but ancient Indian pyramids and South American megaliths, they look identical type of style. Like, just like, it's kind of like segmented up with the stairs on the side. And so I don't know. I mean, that holds merit, that holds some merit right there. Translating, the pyramids, where South America, I mean, I think a minimum of 60,000 have been found, like just a obscene amount of pyramids down there. It's crazy.
Well, we're talking about the Red Indians and the Caucasians and, possibly the Black, a lot of people believe that the Olmecs were a Black culture. So it's very possible that maybe the Olmecs also stemmed from that same place, and that they were, because they're also regarded to the Mayans. So,
one fun thing I was like too is, Maya is the mother of Hermes. Hermes originally is supposedly Thoth from Atlantis, and so the Mayan Empire could have been, a tribute to the original Atlanteans from that, being the mother of wisdom, Mother Mary, Maya, Mary, and all that. Crazy, man.
There is a weird red, black, and white beach on Santorini as well. I just thought I remember being there in 1990. There's literally a black beach, a red beach, and a white beach, and that's where the Thera exploded, which was supposedly, some people were saying that might be Atlantis, when that blew up.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if there's it's an alchemical processes of like something, I know in alchemy they talk about red, white, and black, but I'm wondering if it, like, the stones themselves, like they're being a certain type of like
ochre.
Yeah, exactly. Like some sort of like the molecular makeup of a white rock is usually quartz, right? So there's your quartz. Black rock is like obsidian and stuff.
I think magnesium is red. Like there's when it's full of or iron. I think iron. I think iron turns it red.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mars.
Yeah, that's interesting. So maybe that's interesting. Maybe through this volcanic thing, maybe it didn't take millions of years to create a beach of black. Maybe it was an alchemical process of transmutation from something to these little stones, from the volcano.
Yeah. Volcanoes are very fucking important, man. Like, I think we've been into that. Oh yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
No, rock, paper, scissors. Ready?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say volcanoes are in fact like they're so important to I think human origin stories because one, they're fearing, right? Like they're God fearing people. Well, gods are volcanoes because they can create life and they can also take it away. And from that though, you have everything you might need to kind of like, I don't know, understand science as we know it now. Like you would be able to get everything from a volcano and surrounding areas that you would need to create a society. And I think that's something else we could do if we're trying to date back and chronologize history as we are, and to look at it through an alternative point, but to kind of maybe look at the major volcanoes and then stem out from there and create a timeline from that.
Yeah.
I love that. I read a book by Simon Winchester many, many years ago. I'm trying to find it now. And it was about the volcano. I think it was about Toba, or was it about one that's more recent? It's funny. It's not on his website here. But he really did a good job of explaining how it disappeared. Like the island blew up and disappeared. Right. And then the volcano brought it back up into the land, and how quickly it became a new island. Literally, like just birds and fish and reptiles and everything, and plants, and it just became, you could watch it sort of be created from scratch from this volcano coming up through the water. Was it
wow
or I can't. It's funny how I can't find the name of it. I get them all mixed up all the time. But
I remember last time, Graham, we had you and Darren on. We talked a little bit about pyramids and what we thought they were. I think I might have had mentioned it on there too, that they were cloud seeding machines. And on the last episode that we did on the group show, we kind of stumbled into this discussion again, and it kind of made us have a revelation that maybe the pyramids were synthetic volcanoes and they're trying to imitate a volcano. And by using the water coming up from the ground and pouring it over the outside of the hot stones, they were able to create steam and create moisture and create clouds, and then be able to create harvests. And because you get the rain waters would be able to, so they could plant and everything and eat. That being a priority for life, and so we got into the idea that maybe, there's synthetic volcanoes and they're just trying to replicate that volcano, and that's why there's so many different volcano gods. And they also call them like mountains as mounts, right? Like they go up to these mountain tops, or Mount Shasta, or Mount Sinai, or Mount Zion, which are synthetic versions of mountains. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, maybe there's something in there into the whole aspect of them being synthetic volcanoes.
And I mean, wouldn't you, back then, wouldn't you be wondering like if that is Hades or Amenta underneath there, like the actual underworld? This magma coming up. You'd hear rumors about these volcanoes and how the underworld is coming up into the, this super hot fucking heated underworld, and
that could be another thing with the tunnels and the caverns that we talk about with the underworld or the subterranean realms, is maybe they weren't man-made. Maybe they're just all lava flow tunnels, and
old volcanoes.
And they just use them to their benefit because they're aware of them.
Yeah. So the book I was thinking of is Krakatoa, The Day the World Exploded, August 27th, 1883.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
1883?
Yeah.
Man, that was a big year. There's a lot of shit going on.
I know. I've been wanting to. I've been thinking of putting a timeline of 1800s together, because these books, like reading all these books, and I kind of wanted to just mention something generally to you guys about a year, sort of like a year and a bit of reading these old books, right, from the 1800s and the 1900s. I didn't realize that they've been fighting our fight for hundreds of years against dogmatic religion, materialism, scientism. They were really pushing back hard in those days, like whether it was Blavatsky or the spiritualism movement, or, even sort of some of the magic and the occult stuff, or even the secret societies were kind of discussing whether to let humanity know about these things. But it all seemed to shift in the 1800s, in the late 1800s or early 1900s. And I've been thinking of putting more of it like a timeline and trying to piece together some of this stuff. A lot of stuff happened.
Tartaria connection right there, right?
Well,
Please do, man.
And then the war, then redrawing of all the countries and the Great War. I mean, that sort of was the culmination of all that, it seems.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Man,
so
yeah,
I mean,
what's crazy about those old books is, damn it, I lagged out again. Sorry. I hate that. Whenever I gotta go move inside, so I don't because every time I'm outside, I just like end up lagging out a little bit. Anyways, sorry. But these old books, you know how they have like a number next. What is it called when you have a number next to a word?
Roman numerals?
No. But and then it has like the the reference down below. Yeah. Dude, like in one book, like one old book, you'll have hundreds of other books within that book just referenced. And I'm like, I want to get every book that I read inside of these old books. But some of them are from like 1400, 1500, and it's impossible. I mean, a lot of them don't even exist, and they're in, Latin or French or something. But man, there's just not enough time in the world. But what's great is you're making the fucking time to read the books. You're like, actually, you know what? I'm going to make this my job, which is just, I love it, man. It's so tight.
Yeah, exactly. I just finished reading Agrippa's, all 4 of his books on magic from the 1500s. I mean, pretty interesting. He was a Catholic. I think he's a Catholic. He's a Christian. Anyways, I get them mixed up all the time. But and he was, I think he kind of got pushback from the church after he wrote them. But I mean, he wrote 3 interesting books on magic, and then a 4th one afterwards. So it's pretty interesting to be able to read some of those old books.
What were you what was your takeaway on those? Like, what was your don't do magic, or are you gonna do it? Or what?
I don't know. I flip flop back and forth all the time on that. I mean, he had what I don't understand is that he had a bit of a Christian. It was almost a Christianized version of magic in a way, or he included that. I probably should figure out how to articulate this a little better at some point, but he backed off. I sent this thing to Joe Roop, actually. I mean, I don't even know if I should read it out loud, but he wrote a thing at the end of his book that he kind of was young and naive when he wrote these books on magic, because he was only in his early 20s. Mm-hmm. And he had sent them to some priests or like some higher ups in his area of, I think he was in France or Italy or something. And they said, these are amazing. And cause he was so young, it's almost like he channeled this stuff. I mean, but it's very detailed, works from the old, Hermetic stuff. I mean, it's almost everything about magic, really, but and then he says at his last paragraph here, he says, or second to last paragraph, but of magic I wrote whilst I was very young, 3 large books, which I called Of Occult Philosophy, in which what was then, through the curiosity of my youth, erroneous, I now being more advised and willing to have retracted by this recantation, I formerly spent much time and cost in these vanities. At last I grew so wise as to be able to dissuade others from this destruction. So he's kind of warning people off that.
Completely recanted.
And I said to Joe, I'm like, so what do you think Agrippa meant here? And he says, sounds like he fucked with something and realized it was real. Then it scared him back to his religion. Happens all the time. Could be a saving grace. I said, yeah, or pressure from the church. He said, exactly. Yeah. He was a Catholic when he wrote that stuff. Any true magician knows power comes from God or source or whatever you want to call it. You have to look at that era too. They probably were going to burn his ass.
Yeah. They probably were.
Yeah,
so
pretty
true.
interesting. So
You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful. I've said this like 5 times on different podcasts now. I'm gonna say it again, but I had a dream. Aleister Crowley came into my dream the other night. Well, probably, maybe a week ago. It was in the week. And, I don't even know, like I have like a few visualizations of Crowley. But I'm wondering how and why he was there and why my psyche made him like attached to this other, man's throat. And, I've always been, kind of like curious about sex magic because it's very curious because it's like you're taking two things that people, generally like enjoy and, you're putting them together. And so I think that's what really is like intriguing about it. I don't know how powerful or potent it is, but I'm wondering he's like coming to my dreams. He's like, you better do your rituals.
Wow.
Hail,
yeah, exactly.
Hail Pan.
Did I tell you? I think I told you when we were on about my dream, didn't I?
Yes.
About the demon lord. I mean, maybe I should mention it here too, since we're talking about magic. So
yes,
I'm reading. So I don't want to say. I'm not going to say too much because I've said too much already. When I do talk too much about the details of this, my girlfriend gets her incubus attacks, like demon, shadow demon, devil attacks. Like seriously.
Oh shit!
So I was reading this last book of Agrippa's, and was it Agrippa's? Yeah, his fourth book, and I was reading out all these names of angels and demons and stuff, and I'm like, and he's talking about how when you say these things out loud, I'm thinking, oh fuck, is this like, should I be reading this book out loud? Like, should I be putting it out there to everybody? Because I've already had these experiences where I had once stopped an attack twice in its tracks by doing some protection magic and stuff. And I don't want to conjure anything. I don't want to even communicate with it. I don't even really want to go out and look for UFOs anymore. I'm like, just whatever, but I want to just protect things and just be sort of sane about it. Right. Not go out for the wrong reasons or whatever, looking for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've had enough to show me that shit's real. Right. I don't need any more proof myself. Okay, I'll say a little bit more. So I'm talking to my mom and my sister about it, and I'm thinking to myself, should I be talking to them about this? Because maybe, and she got attacked that night, and it'd been over a year and a half. And I told my mom and my sister. No, my girlfriend, because I was talking to them about protecting her, right? About what I did. So and then it makes you wonder, like, no wonder why they tell you not to talk about stuff, right? In these secret schools and stuff, and that you just keep to yourself. So, I mean, that could be one reason why, right? There's all these connections that you don't even know about. So then I told my girlfriend, I said, I'm sorry. I talked to them about it and I wondered if that would happen. And then of course and lucky she's so open. We talk to each other about this, right? But she never knows ahead of time what I'm talking about. So I'm glad that she's open with me about it. So anyway, so then I'm reading this book, this fourth book of Agrippa's, wondering about all this. I'm thinking, I wonder if it's going to bring anything in or if it's going to affect her.
Manifesting it.
She fucking gets attacked that night by this devil. It was the worst encounter she's ever had. I woke her up in the middle of her nightmare. She was being attacked by this devil.
Could you tell like she was like screaming or something? Yeah,
she made some weird whimper. And I thought, I woke up and I'm like, she doesn't mind if I wake her up and it's nothing, right? I mean, she would appreciate my initiative to try and help her. So I woke her up in the middle of this thing. So I'm like, holy fuck, dude.
So when you noticed her, like when you noticed her noise, like in the bed, like because like you ever like get woken up randomly and you feel an energy around, you feel like a heavy, did you feel that or did you just wake up? It was kind of normal and you noticed a noise.
Yeah. I didn't really notice it. No, but I'm not very good at noticing that kind of stuff. To be honest with you, I'm not very sensitive like that. I feel stuff in my body. I'm sensitive. Like I've had like Kundalini awakening stuff. I feel physical things, but to feel other presences and stuff, that's pretty tough for me.
But one time my little brother fucking like came down. I was like sleeping. I was visiting my mom's, like we don't get to see each other much. Right. And, he came downstairs and he like apparently was trying to wake me up for a little bit and I like didn't wake up. And, he was just like, hey, Roman. And I just wake up and I see his face and his face is just kind of blurry, you know, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I just had this fear, like there was like, you know, like demon fucking energy. Like, and I told him I'd get the fuck out. I was like, leave. You know, he's like a 14-year-old kid, you know, I was like, get the fuck out of here. Ah! And, it's crazy, but like, we've been talking a lot about Jack Parsons, right? We're doing like this Parsons deep dive and shit. And so I'd been studying Parsons and Crowley and all of this shit. And I was like, I definitely manifested his shit into my dream. And yeah, man, it's real. It's real, guys. Everyone listening, y'all, be fucking careful unless you want to experience it. But, you know, be prepared for when you do, because it's going to happen.
Yeah. Have you read The Two Antichrists yet from Peter Gray at Scarlet Imprint?
No.
Before you summarize your thoughts on Crowley and them and Jack Parsons, just read that book. It's fucking fantastic. It's really good.
What is it called?
The Two Antichrists. It's about Parsons and Crowley, right? And I mean, it's so weird because those sci-fi writers, all those prominent sci-fi writers were hanging around them too at the time. And what's his name that created Scientology? Hubbard was there. And fucking, it's just like, what a time when all these guys are famous, like 70, 80 years later, you know? It's so weird, dude.
Yeah, man.
And what did they do? So anyway, so then I'm reading this encounter of a listener out in bed the other night, and I thought I'm going to put some essential oils on my temple, on my third eye. I'm going to go to bed with an intention to have a dream about an oracle. I want to know, like, I want to have a sort of an oracle type dream. So I go to bed. And I never get scared in my dreams, which is good. Like, I don't, even if I have nightmares, like, you know how I just never get really that scared. But anyways, we were on this trip in my dream and everything. And I encountered this sort of in this basement thing, this demon lord, and I never had a doubt that I could beat this demon lord, but I ended up killing him with hand sanitizer. I shook it to the front of the bottle. I just squirted it in his mouth, and you could see the look on his face. He's like in shock. And for some reason I knew that was like holy water. So I don't know if if that's connected to all the other experiences or not, but I mean, I watched him sort of foam at the mouth and just basically disintegrate into like this frail old man underneath the floorboards. It was very strange in this hole in the ground.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Wow.
Holy shit. Just super intense. I was like,
I'm going to keep a bottle of that on me.
Like hand sanitizer.
A bottle of that shit, man.
And then I thought, you know what I think it was? Honestly, I think it was as deep as like the humanity has worshipped hand sanitizer over the last 2 years. And that's why it was holy, because it was endowed with the fucking worship, the intention of people to save them, you know, something like that. It wasn't about its alcohol content or anything like that. It was more about the spiritual aspect of it, I think.
Yeah.
Like an egregore from the people of, you know, just buying so much of it and putting it into their lives on their skin. Crazy.
It's called COVID fatigue, Graham.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I live in Canada. I'm still trapped in my own country. So,
shit.
Whatever.
Still?
Well, no, not technically.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if they were legit like lockdown. So I was like, God damn.
No. I mean, the unjabbed are still not. They can't leave, right? Really. That's how crazy it is. Technically, the unjabbed can't go anywhere. So.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It's fucked. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
so what you're saying is you're going to start doing these contact of the cabins in Canada.
Yeah, we've thought about it.
But... other things that we were talking about, like minerals and crystals and stuff. Another interesting connection that is in the book is about pearls, and it was pretty fascinating. I didn't really put all these things together so much. Do you remember any of that? And can you go into that at all?
Not really. Just the shell, even the shells, like there's commonalities with the pearl shells and all that, and the way they worship all the shells and the pearls. I'm trying to remember what chapter that was in.
That's in like Japanese culture though. Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
because the pearls, and then Pearl Harbor, I remember. And then there's, the food dogs often have like their hands on top of like a big ball. Is that maybe a pearl also? Like they're protecting it?
I'm not sure.
Can I play a clip from the book real quick that kind of touches on the pearls and everything?
Yeah.
It's because I'm connecting the pearls with the egg, because the egg is, a metaphor for a bunch of things. And there's this really cool story in the book about eggs. And I was like, holy shit, because I was just talking to Juan earlier. He texted me randomly. He was like, does Fulcanelli talk about eggs? And I was like, yeah, man. He talks about eggs a few times in the alchemical process. And he's like, send me that so I can add it to my, so I can feed the beast. And then I was listening to the book, and then there was egg stories there. And, it really is a huge kind of, simile, these correlations between eggs and the cosmic egg. And, there's huge simile. And I posted something, I think, to our Telegram earlier that was like an ostrich egg that was, bowed in silver, gold, and copper, and it was from 3500 BCE, found in a tomb. It was an ostrich egg that was found in a fucking tomb, from 3500 BCE, and bowed in these sacred metals. And I'm like, wow, the appreciation of eggs goes way back, right? And so I'm going to play this clip. Everybody, here we go.
There is, it must be frankly recognized, a remarkable resemblance between the metal symbolism of pre-Columbian America and that of the Old World. One of the Peruvian creation myths set forth that at the beginning 3 eggs fell from the sky, one of gold, one of silver, and one of copper. From the gold egg was hatched the Curicas, or chiefs, from the silver egg the nobles, and from the copper egg the common people. This connection between metals and castes is found in India. It is also found in the Indian and Greek doctrines of the world's ages, which refer to the races identified with the Gold Age, the Silver Age, the Copper Age, and the Iron Age. In Mexico, gold was given the same arbitrary connection with the sun and silver with the moon, as obtained in ancient Egypt and in ancient Asian and European civilizations. Among the gifts sent by King Montezuma to Cortez were 2 wheels, the one of gold and the other of silver, each one, according to Captain Andres de Tapia, the size of a cartwheel. Here, wrote Francisco d'Aguilar, they, the Spaniards, were given a present of a gold sun, among some weapons and a moon of silver.
Wow.
Hey, you don't even remember that, Graham?
Yeah, I do remember it. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating though, eh? I mean, how it's like you said, the silver moon and the gold sun. I mean, it's all over.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to find like a correlation somewhere with the eggs, and I'm wondering if it's like symbolism for, rebirth or initiation, or if it literally is a fascination with birds, because we know that to be true, especially with pre-Columbian, mythos, the Mayan mythos, Aztec mythos, the birds. Feathers are sacred. Birds are of the air element. They are close to gods. And, so I'm wondering if we're at a really heavy bird worship at some point, and, we really did assume that life was like an egg. Fragile, yet also, the potentiality of creating more life.
Have you ever heard of that guy that was creating alchemical? He was basically creating life out of nothing with an egg.
No.
What's that?
He was on Aeon Byte. I think that's the way I could describe it. I mean, I just remember years ago listening to him he was putting it in an oven and doing it was a very astronomical ceremony as well, and doing certain things and creating this basically, I don't know if it was a homunculi or something out of nothing, but super interesting. So the part about pearls here, it looks like the on stuffing the mouth of the son of heaven with rice, they put jade therein. In the case of a feudal lord, they introduced pearls. and that of a great officer. So they were using pearls in the mouth of dead lord, I guess, I don't know, lords or now pearls
Kings,
were used nobles, I guess, a Chinese first century tech. China was doing it, as shown that in Mexico, as in China, Europe, and ancient Egypt, green stones were interred with the dead. So they interred them with the dead. In Mexico, indeed, they were, as in China, placed in the mouths of the dead. Now pearls were used in precisely the same way. In India, pearls were likewise placed in the mouths of the dead, as Marco Polo has stated. In Japan, as in India, they were placed in the mouths of even the dead who were cremated. They'd still put pearls in the mouths. And then pieces of these halitois shells and rice were interred in the dead in Korea. So, I mean,
I could get real box saga with that, and say like part of the offering system, is seeding into your own mouth, and that was giving life. Your seed is your life, so the egg representing the seed of life, putting that into your mouth is like you're having good life into their next life. With the Egyptian ceremonies too, you often see the ankh, right? And the ankh is supposed to represent life itself, and you see them putting it into the mouths of people. And what those ankhs were actually for, according to Bach Saga, were for holding the king's penis in it, and it was called the golden eye, is what it was referred to as. And they'd put their penis in through there, and their seed would be extracted that way without having to touch it. And they would, so there's a connection to that life-giving force, and pearls. And, even nowadays we talk about, a thing called a pearl necklace. And so there's a very interesting connotations to that whole thing.
Dude, what if all that stuff works?
I mean, I'm just saying, no, but that's there. It's there.
So here's a really good point, because they were obsessed with the afterlife, and they were obsessed with the astral realms back in Egypt, and they were obsessed with being able to not get stuck in that limbo, right? Like, you got to recognize that you're dead and move on, and then come back, in the resurrection. Yeah. So what if that stuff all worked, and then they're doing that in Mexico too, right? They're stuffing the dead bodies with pearls and gems to help them on their journey, right? And I mean, we've lost all that, right? I mean, we've completely lost any thread of controlling the afterlife or controlling your journey back, with memories. Maybe they knew that they could reincarnate with memories.
Wow.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. Okay, so I just watched this fucking movie last night, or is it yesterday or something? Sometimes I just want to do nothing and just have some entertainment in the back, right? Like, just watch a fucking movie and not try to de-occult it or anything, and just fucking have it play, even though sometimes it's inevitable. But there's this new movie called. I know, dude. If it's a good movie that deserves a de-occultish, any Marvel movie, absolutely. But anyways, also, holy shit, Marvel Universe was after Jack Parsons' father. Supposedly, that's a thread that we're going to try to follow up on, that Stan Lee, because Marvel Parsons, the father of Jack Parsons, was, yet again, another fucking occultist, right? And anyway, so we think that their family has huge ties into kind of this whole mythological realm. That's completely off topic, but this movie called Infinite, it's basically, it has Mark Wahlberg, and it's about reincarnation. And there's these three different types of souls that remember when they come back. One group of them is the good souls that they want to keep it going. There's this ultimate purpose to life. There's these souls that they remember, but they don't want to do anything because they want to just have the best human life they can. Then there's the dark souls that want to destroy reincarnation and destroy life as it is. But I, the whole time, was just like, damn, dude, what the fuck? oh my God, like, yes, like we are, cause like reincarnation, I'm so with it, dude. I'm so 100% with it. But I started thinking, I was like, how can we start to tap into our old memories to maybe help us get back to our true purpose and our true divine work? And this right here sounds like the type of things that we need to start practicing or start at least putting back into our collective consciousness so people can try to fucking reincarnate with some old memories, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Or even just not to get fucking stuck in bardo or limbo or whatever it is that, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how many people get stuck? I mean, there's people that are doing the soul rescues. They're doing it all the time. They're doing it all the time, right? They go into the astral realm, and the Monroe Institute teaches people how to do this. You can go on a 1-week course on how to do the soul rescues. And you just catch people in the astral realm that are stuck. You know, they haven't accepted that they're dead yet.
Wow.
I mean, they think they're just stuck in this weird like limbo. And I mean, they've been talking about this for thousands and thousands of years, this state of being. And now we can actually, you know, some people go in there and rescue people. But there was reasons why
on your show about that.
Is that the purgatory?
Yeah. I don't know if that's purgatory or if to me, I think purgatory is like the judgment that you're going to face when you die. Like that, you know.
Oh, it's like the court or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
waiting in line at Disneyland.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have had people on your show that have that work in the field of like going and grabbing people out of these realms.
Yeah, or not that they work in that field because they probably don't get paid, but they sort of hobby work in that field.
Shit, man, that's a great hobby. I'll build model airplanes.
Well, it's tough, dude. It's I don't know. I mean, I can't really get to the astral realm very easy, so you know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Some people seem to be able to, but.
Maybe those are the souls that type of, you know, when another thing that movie made me think of is, you know, when people come back and they're just so good at singing. They're just naturally, they can sing at a young age. They're just beautiful, beautiful singers. You know, it makes me think that, you know, in the past life, their cosmic karma was just so great, or, you know, their grandma or whoever
or they're buried with pearls in their
embalming
mouth.
them, or, you know, setting them off. Exactly. That was Dan. You stepped away for a sec, but that was the whole point I brought up that movie, was because, you know, I kind of think that this is important to kind of bring back up, is trying to let people know that there are things that we should be doing for our loved ones to have them come back or remember their life's purpose, dude. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah.
So fucking
I
cool.
agree.
Okay, so one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like in the Mexican culture, they honor their dead and venerate them, and you know, more so than we do in other Western culture.
Yeah, super necessary. So I want to bring up because it blew my mind. Didn't know. I knew that the swastika was a really old symbol. And in my opinion, it's kind of like maybe a play off of the sun cross, which is like the cross with a circle around it, which is supposedly the old Atlantean flag or the Atlantean symbol. You have the Celtic cross, which is a bigger cross with a circle, you know, through it. But the swastika in this book, the pre-Columbian myths, the myths of pre-Columbia, swastika came from there, came from the Aztec and Maya, came from that. Then it was hijacked. Like, I thought that was fascinating. And then I Googled it, and, you know, trusting to Google. But yeah, like I found a bunch of other PDFs and websites that kind of like affirmed that. Did you guys know that before the book, or?
No,
I thought it came from all over the place. But I thought it was more of a Hindu or Vedic thing. But
yeah.
Well, that would make. I mean, this book is just connecting the Vedas to South America. In my opinion, there's so many correlations between them that, you know, I'm wondering. And then I think it's go automatically to Lemuria. I'm like, they're Lemurians.
Yeah, you never know.
Maybe.
Yeah. In the book too, you talk about burying people and mummies and water burials and boat burials in America. And I thought that was pretty fascinating because I thought the Vikings were really the only ones that did like the boat burials and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And one of the things you said is when they burn them, it takes their spirit up into the sky. And I was just like, oh man, that's fucking deep. I mean, to me, I feel like that's super interesting that they were thinking so far ahead. Like, if we burn them, their spirit will just go up into the sky. And and because when we're talking about the birds and bird mythology, part of that mythology is that they're the ones taking the souls up to the hole, you know, in the North Pole. So
yeah. And again, so it doesn't get stuck. So it travels to the next realm, right? Like it's a clear travel to the next realm. Yeah.
Yeah.
They obviously thought that was really important, right?
So then what does burying people do then? Does that trap your soul?
Yeah. Holy shit.
Is that a soul trap?
Maybe. Because I feel like there's a lot of the correlations I'm kind of picking up on is like, okay, if you die alone and there's no one there to kind of like make sure that you're going off in a peaceful manner or something like that, then you might get stuck. But I'm wondering if there was like some sort of flip in the script, and then burying. But we've been burying people for a long time, so it might be kind of a stretch. But I don't know. That's fascinating, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the Egyptians somewhat buried people. They put them in like catacombs or whatnot, but they also took out all their insides and did ceremonies to help their soul ease on to the next place. They didn't just throw them in a fucking box and stick them in a hole, you know? So I don't know, dude. It's trippy though. Like, cause there's a lot of stuff about building houses on Indian burial grounds. Like you get ghosts and spirits and stuff that way. So are they actually trapped, you know, because
that's why a graveyard is so haunted, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
They're just roaming around that spot. They just can't go to that next plane, you know?
Yeah, they need to get the vaccination to get out of Canada. They're just stuck.
Fuck, exactly.
Man.
Their souls are trapped, man.
How do you want to go, Graham?
I don't know. The Valhalla way, I guess, you know, in battle.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, man.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a fighter right now. I just wish we were all less scared of it and just more, you know, that's the other part that materialism has destroyed in us, right? Is just this, you know, it's just this meaningless life that, you know, instead of living and being, you know, good to each other and sort of following the golden rule and letting people live as they want to live, you know, and, you know, I think there's a real spiritual component to freedom, you know, whether that's political or cultural or whatever, that's, I think what avoiding sort of that purgatory or hell is, right? Letting people live free.
Oh, yeah. And that's obviously another thing that's been kind of like flip the script, you know. I think like even if we were to break down society as we know it, you know, and take down the 1%, it still wouldn't be right in tune with Earth's resonance, you know, and our purpose. I feel like we can do it without breaking it down by just simply like kind of stepping to the side and, you know, basically resonating with Earth as much as possible. And these old stories are incredibly important, you know, the pearls and the gold, like just reconnecting with these minerals, reconnecting with these things that the Earth provides for us. Like we're so fucking lucky and we're so ungrateful a lot of times and ignorant to all of this just abundance that is here, you know, and it's not abundance in a, in the sense of, you know, paper notes and coins and things like that, because that's man-made and it's literally fucking fake. But we have so much abundance in the things that are actually real that, you know, but we piss on it. We piss on it. It's ignorance. And, you know, it's just been flipped. Sorry, I blackpilled just hard there.
Yeah, I was thinking, I've been watching Vikings, this show called The Last Kingdom a lot lately.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that. I think I got to like the beginning of season 2 and then
they're always asking for silver, right? They're always like, I want silver. they don't care too much about the gold. I guess they just feel like they're probably not going to get that much gold, so they just try to get what silver they can. But the whole idea of the association of silver with the moon and then the word money, that kind of like struck me too. Is like, oh, this is why it's called Mooney. It's because it's the silver component that they're getting as pay. So I just
even
thought that was interesting.
Loot is kind of like Luna.
Yeah.
Well, the antimicrobial part about silver too, and the like fending you off from undead and vampires and lycanthropy and all that. There's all that really. There's some deep spiritual protection from silver as well, right? You know, you can't even kill these things without a silver weapon, for example, or you know.
Yeah.
They're fighting against the British vampires, man. They need as much silver as they can get.
Yeah, werewolves are associated with a full moon and nighttime, and vampires are associated with darkness and being nocturnal also. So you have to like live by the sword, die by the sword type of thing, huh? You have to like, yeah, that's fascinating. There's so many interesting things like when we get into these topics and you make those connections, you're just like, oh, like how come we didn't know about that? Like, how come we didn't get thought about that in school? Like, it's so,
you know why?
Yeah, I know.
Well, that's what's so interesting about these authors that were fighting. Like, I thought a lot of this stuff, like Atlantis, comparative mythology, the spiritualism, and so I thought that was all sort of contemporary, right? Like, I thought that was a fresh battle we were up against in a way. Like, in my naive way, I thought, well, yeah, but now we're realizing the truths and we're sort of fighting this battle. But they've been doing it for fucking hundreds of years. In the 1800s, spiritualism was huge, dude. In New York, there was people meeting and doing these seances and all kinds of shit was happening. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I don't know why Theosophy was pushing back against spiritualism so much. I mean, I do know why. They were at odds with what, like, contacting the dead. They didn't think that was happening. But either way, there was phenomena happening all over. I think they were really building up to a sort of a crescendo or a tipping point of accepting this. And when you read Charles Fort's books about the phenomena from the 1800s, I mean, holy fuck, just one case after another of this strange phenomena that you can't explain. And he does a really good job about, again, fighting back against the dogma of scientism and the exclusionists that would just leave out all this data to not change their paradigm. And he would still be like, okay, I'll put all this data in. That doesn't mean I know the truth because everything shifts. It's always moving towards something else. It's always in flux. The truth is very elusive when it comes to that, right? There's always data left out, out.
What time period is Charles Fort writing in there?
So in the early 1900s, like he was writing a lot about the 1800s, the late 1800s. He kept his analysis in his books within the 1800s and then the early 1900s as well. Yeah, and he was pushing back against the astronomers big time. He was like, these guys.
He's a flat earther.
Well, no, but he just kept saying, like, you know, all these astronomers see things that don't get accepted into their paradigm, yet they make all these crazy predictions that they do, and then the predictions don't come true, and it doesn't do anything. That is like they just go on with their old, because they've already attained this career in astronomy. A failed prediction doesn't mean anything, yet all this other stuff gets left out of the equation, you know?
Yeah, they're not like really taking, like a true science would be, okay, what did we fuck up just now?
Yeah, what were those UFOs going across the moon? Why are you ignoring the astronomers that saw those, you know?
What's on the dark side? Oh my God, a megalith? What? No, can't tell motherfuckers that. No way. Yeah, the dark side of the moon, man. Yet again, Parsons. He's got a crater on the dark side of the moon.
You got any more notes over there, Graham, you want to go over?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, there's another book that you guys might like because I think Roman was talking about the alphabet a lot and the root words. Maybe that was you.
Oh, yes.
You, Dan.
Yeah, that was me. That was me. Yeah.
But the esoteric structure of the esoteric structure of the alphabet is from Alvin Boyd Kuhn, and it's pretty good. We've done that on audio, and he mentions Gerald Massey, the author of the Ancient Egypt Light of the World, in here. Those two sort of complemented each other's works, and they liked each other's works. So those are pretty good too. Just that real deep sort of comparative mythological things. That this shows the root words of all the roots of all these words go back to like one or two sources, or similar sources. So.
Wow.
I've been meaning to get that book, but I might just have to swoop it on Audible instead. Because someone, I can't remember who, if it was Bruce DeTorres or somebody, recommended Kuhn for the alphabet, because there's not a lot of books on the structure of the alphabet. So, like, apparently he's like, Edgar Edwards Kuhn's book is one of the only ones, because it's very esoteric, super esoteric.
Yeah. So that's about it, I guess. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Graham.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you guys. That was a fun conversation.
Also, I want to say too, also in the book, you talk a lot about the migrations of different people, where they're coming from into these America lands, and kind of a lot more of the overall mythology of these places too. So for anybody that didn't get enough out of this, go check out the book, pre-Columbian America. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Myths of pre-Columbian America.
Yeah.
Yeah. By Donald Mackenzie. And that's on Audible right now as well.
Yeah. So go check it out. It's a long read. It's like 14 hours, I think.
Was it that long? Yeah. Geez. The Ancient Egypt Light of the World is like 33 hours, I think. The secret doctrines and the ISIS Unveiled, and what was the other, the Secret Teachings of All Ages are all like 38 hours. I think they're long books. Yeah.
Holy cow, dude.
But we have the combined works of Charles Fort out. Like the Book of the Damned is really good. And you can buy on Audible, you can get the combined works of Charles Fort for like a credit if you're on the Audible thing. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another, I think that's 38 hours or something too.
Wow. Yeah. No, everybody go check out either adultbrain.ca. Right. Oh, why am I shouting this out? Sorry. Go ahead, Graham.
No. Yeah. It's adultbrain.ca or Grimerica.ca is the podcast. Grimerica-Outlawed.ca is our other feed. Yeah. And then contactedthecabin.ca is the events and stuff. There's some openings left with Randall and the Scablands in Washington in September. I think there might be a spot or two left in Montana in June. And actually a couple of spots opened up for us just coming up in the end of April in Utah for the Myths of the Stars with David Matheson and Bryce Canyon and Zion Park. A couple people canceled it last second. I don't know if those are already sold out again or not, but you can check that out as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Go check it out. And we're working up something. Darren hit me up today after we went on the show the other day and was just like, what if we do like a really cool camp out situation on your property in Hawaii? And I was like, absolutely, let's do it. And so I have a bunch of ideas in store. Dan, me, Darren, Graham, David Matheson. Maybe we'll get like the boy Gabe Slick Dissident to come out and do like a territories thing. And I want to get some real Hawaiians to do. We
have Navier lives out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she does. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
She could do some spiritual stuff with us.
Man, yeah, we're gonna get it going, everybody. That sounds amazing. I want to go to, I want to go to the Scablands because like I said earlier, I'm a Washingtonian, but I've never actually been to the fucking Scablands. So, am I really a Washingtonian?
Yeah, I think it'd be great to get out there and see that the history on the ground. I mean, that's kind of like what we aspire to be able to do with the show too. Is to be able to get some money flowing in, so that way we can go out to these locations and start looking at them for ourselves instead of just talking about shit, because the proof is in the pudding, and we're just talking about the snack pack but haven't ate the pudding.
You love the snack pack.
That's awesome. Yeah, good idea.
So thank you, Graham. We love you, man. You're an inspiration.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being on the show. And to the Fire Tribe out there, if you're not down with that, wake up. Yo, so we just got done with Graham Dunlop.
Wow.
Fantastic. I thought it was a really great interview. I really like talking to Graham anyway, but he reads so many books on Audible or for Audible that there, especially a lot of the books that we talk about in this community. And so it's really great to be able to have a source to go get that in audio and just listen to it instead of having to try to read it or pronounce it. It's even funny to hear him try to pronounce some of these words because he's not really quite sure how to say some of these names either. And so it's funny in some ways, and it's like humbling because it's like, oh, well, now I don't have to mess up because I often mess up people's names and stuff like that on the show when I'm reading from books and everything. But yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I actually learned quite a bit from the book, and I've only gotten through to about chapter 10. And so I think there's like 18 or 20 chapters. So there's still a lot more for me to go through. But yeah, I think it's a really good detail about a lot of things about America. And it's amazing how many of those things pertain to other religions and other cultures all over the world. And so it doesn't really seem like America was like last to get this information.
No.
It seems like they're like on the same like linear time path as all these other ones in some way.
If anything, it predates. I don't think a lot of this book, the Myths of Pre-Columbian America, and what we're talking about in the show is kind of like there's correlations between Asia and South America and India. And between either it's like their gods and the mythos and the theologies, or architecturally speaking. But, we just did Atlantis Lemuria month, brother, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think we know what the precursor was. I think we know why they all have the same story. I think we know, but, we're just filling in the gaps slowly but surely.
Mm-hmm.
But it is so fascinating. It is so fascinating. But what we do need to come to terms on as a sweet Fire Tribe family is, can we create a chronology, a web through this show, through these findings, and really connect it back to the true Atlantis? I feel like that would be a magnum opus as far as, if we could do that. And we're well on our way. But one thing I know is for sure, alchemy plays a big part, whether or not it's like hermetic, like Western alchemy, where it's like all these, French philosophers, or it's pre-Columbian Mayan texts, or Aztecs. Like it was happening, understanding the fucking mineral, and the mineral composites and the precious metals and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about the alchemical process and like in the colors of the red, white, and black of the same colors of the pyramids of Egypt, or these same colors of Atlantis, and how that's also part of the alchemical process. And, we talk about, the macro and the micro and how these things play out in our physical realm. I think all of that stuff is connected in some way. We come from the earth as much as we come from the sky, so
yeah,
I think that has something to do with it. It's part of that alchemical process of creating life. And we're part of that process. And so we see the same representations in all those things.
I agree. And I think the colors, this is just me speculating, but I think they have something to do with, putting them all together creates magnetism of sorts, creates like a feasible energy source of something. And so, I mean, that's kind of just what I'm putting together. I'm going to do some more digging on that specifically, and I'll get back to you guys on that. But yeah, the red, white, and black, super fascinating. And then where the fuck were we just the other day?
It's even the same color as the bricks too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. I think there's like an energy. Yeah. I think there's an electrical energetic source there. It was on the Occult Book Club the other day with Juan and Paranoid American, who, I don't know if you know Paranoid American. He makes like comic books.
Yeah. I heard him on Andy's show. the deep share, and I was actually watching part of the live stream the other day too. Yeah,
Nice. He's cool. He's cool. He's like he's a Freemason, right? He's got all these books and so on and so forth. But he's also an artist, and he was telling us about.
I thought it was funny. He was like, "You guys are a little out there. You guys are crazy a little bit."
I know, especially Juan's ass.
Yeah, he's a little bit more I don't know, grounded, I guess you could say.
Well, he's he's just older. He's had his whole he's had his life. He's had to the masonry. He's gone through that and everything. But he's logistical in those senses. He you stick to what you fucking know, right? But anyways, what I was saying is I can't reiterate exactly what the fuck he was saying, but he blew my mind on understanding what colors are. Like the primary colors are not red, blue, green, yellow. It's I think it's like red, black, and white or something. Like
that's actually the part that I saw. Yeah.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
RGB.
Yeah, so RGB. Thank you. Yeah. So we really don't. There's so much to dive into with the flipping of the script on the alphabet, on energy, on colors, spectrum, and resonance, and there's just so many things. But we're slowly decoding it, y'all, and you guys are here, part of the journey, and we appreciate you guys so much. So
this is kind of the part of the process of us doing these, theme months and these deep dives into these subjects, is to understand more about that subject instead of just skimming the surface of these things, and to get down deep and into the dirt, and into the nitty gritty of these things, so we can pull out the information to help us understand, where we actually did come from, or, what did all these things mean? I mean, we're into so many different aspects of things, and, Roman has a lot going on with, antiquated transhumanism and resonance architecture that he's trying to put together. And through these shows, he's picking up on pieces of that. And also I've been talking about the Bach saga a lot. And so
You've connected Bach saga all over, dude, like straight up all over the world now.
So I can start, and I'm starting to be able to know it to the point where I can start connecting these pieces. And I still don't even know that much about the saga. I only know what I am able to know, what's already out there for me to be aware of. So there's so much more. But even through some of these symbologies and these symbols that people are referring to, I'm able to pick up on it and go, oh, that seems like it's from there. It could be. It might seem like a stretch in some ways. But, I mean, sometimes it just can't be a stretch anymore. Sometimes it just has to be a connection, And so just the fact that me and Roman both have these different side quests that we're on, and we're coming together for this main quest together and trying to connect all these things, we're building so much more than just this show. We're trying to figure out history. And I think that's the amazing part of what we're doing here. That's just how I feel.
Fuck yeah, baby. And we're almost at 10,000 downloads. So that's really cool too.
Yeah. I mean, when we first started, like the whole thing was like, it wasn't like a thing like, hey, it wasn't like a real goal, but I kind of felt like after we're about halfway through, like, oh, if we could reach 10,000 by 1 year, that'd be fucking awesome. And we haven't put out that actual final episode of the month yet. So, and we're getting pretty close. We're at 92, I think, 92 something. So that's pretty impressive for me, at least.
We're just some small town boys, so 10,000's a whole bunch for us.
We started out of nowhere. We're not authors or speakers or any of that. We're just normal people like the rest of you guys, like the rest of the Fire Tribe out there. So that's why we love for you guys to join up on Telegram, share your ideas too with us, and form a community where we can all talk about these things. Alt Media United is a big part of that too, connecting all these podcasters together so that we can all talk and have these discussions. I think through that, a lot of things are coming together And through that, all of us are figuring out our little pieces of history and coming together and sharing it with each other. And I think it's a beautiful thing, man. Yeah, I know you look fucking wicked, dude. You look like you should be listening to the arias.
Well, I'm going to be moving into a new area soon. And so I'm going to quit being outside and I'll be inside the house, and I'll set it up to where I have candles and crystals and incense and everything, so I can really start vibing out. I want to share something with you guys real quick before we bounce off. So something I've been trying to do lately, I haven't been able to make it out to many yoga classes. I'm still having car issues. I haven't fixed that yet, but so I've been trying to take care of myself at home, and something I want you guys to try to do and see what you guys have in effect. If you guys are on the Telegram or however you guys communicate to us, let me know if you do this and what you feel from it. Also, you too, Dan. But like, sit down and get ready for like a series of 10 deep breaths, like really deep breaths, right? And then breathe in and stick your belly out as far as your belly can go. Just reach your shoulders back and try to kind of like crack open your chest bone. And also at the same time looking up, right? And then what you'll do is you'll feel this huge stretch right in the middle of your chest, up your neck and through the bottom of your jawbones.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's this huge, like, you'll get a lot of fascia build up right in the middle of your chest. You can reach in right where, the top of your heart is. And there's fascia that gets built up there right underneath your sternum. And so, do these breathing techniques and try to open up the front part of you guys' body, because dude, I've had some crazy experiences. Like I've felt like really lightheaded after a couple times, which means, I was really blocked up and I needed to do that. Mm-hmm. If you get lightheaded from something, that means you should probably do that thing more, and, but with having that lack of oxygen, type of moment, you'll have a really psychedelic experience. It's fucking crazy. Like I've forgotten where I was at times, after doing things like that.
I don't recommend that for people while they're driving or operating heavy machinery.
Keep your hands inside your pants while touching your kneecaps. Yeah, no, definitely don't do that while driving. You can do really great breathing practices while driving, though, if you guys drive a lot. There's good things to do. But yeah, you want to make sure that you're able to have a few seconds, but do it to where do the breathing practice where you're really shoving your shoulders back. You're squeezing your shoulder blades and you're expanding your belly out as far as it can go. And you're breathing in as deep as you can breathe. You're filling up to the complete capacity that you can get. And then from there, open up your neck and just look up and just hold it in and then just let it out, like excruciatingly let it out. And yeah, just do that, y'all. Let me know what you think. That's enough of Romy rants there.
All right. Thanks, Roman. Thank you, Fire Tribe. Have a good night. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Anyone I seem to be We rise from the ashes to see the light and the truth behind the big curtain on the stage. I'm just looking for answers behind lost time. Lost time. If everything exists within our atmosphere, then the memory remains. The memories remain. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Therefore, the past is there to be discovered. To discover who we truly are. Because we're just looking for answers. To see if this is all just a simulation. And I'm not sure anymore. Life does just seem to be a blur anymore. Will we rise from the ashes? Wake up.